Hello and welcome to this video demonstrating how to assemble your game components and set up your first and subsequent games of Unfathomable from Fantasy Flight Games. Before you begin setup, it is a good idea to check through your components. On page 3 of the Learn to Play guide is a handy listing you can use to see if anything is missing or damaged. Now punch out the cardboard items. Remember to apply even pressure from the side with the visible cut to avoid tearing. The next thing to do is to assemble the 4 resource dials that are part of the game board. If you are familiar with other FFG games like Legend of the Five Rings or X-Wing, you will have seen these before. If not, then it is nice and simple. Push out the 4 small holes in the game board and the inner parts of each dial. Separate the 2 halves of the plastic connector like so. Place the larger peg all the way through the hole in the needle. Now gently push this through the hole in the front of the board. Then insert the other half into the connector from the rear of the game board. You want it just tight enough so as not to come apart in play, but not over tightened so the dial is hard to move or would damage the game board. All 4 are the same, so it shouldn't matter how you distribute them. The board will pack up and store just fine with the dials in place. There is no need to remove them when packing the game away. Next, slot the cardboard standees into the clear plastic stands. There are enough for 1 each and the 2 track markers. This means you can store them fully assembled and don't need to remove the plastic stands. Which is great because the 3 prongs on the inside hold them very securely and you will damage the paper outer layer if you do frequently remove them. You may wish to sleeve your game components to prolong their lifespan before you begin playing. Sleeves are sold separately. The instructions for setting up your first game are found on page 4 of the Learn to Play guide. This game is designed to be a tutorial and it changes a number of the rules to make it friendlier to new players. The setup instructions for a standard game are found in Appendix 4 on page 20 of the Rules Reference Booklet, along with a brief description of what has changed. Step 1. Place the game board in the center of the table. Step 2. Place the travel and ritual track tokens on the start space of their respective tracks. Step 3. Set each resource dial to its starting value of 8. Step 4. Place the Deep One figures, passenger tokens, traitor rings, and 8-sided die next to the board. Flip all passenger tokens face down and mix them thoroughly. Step 5. Separate the skill cards by type: influence, law, observation, strength, will, and treachery. Shuffle each type into its own deck and place each deck face down beside the game board next to the corresponding label. Step 6. Shuffle the damage deck and place it beside the game board next to its label. Shuffle the Mythos deck and place it near the board. This doesn't have its own marked space. Step 7. Place Father Dagon and Mother Hydra on the area of the board marked the Deep. Place 6 additional Deep Ones in these spaces. Place 2 random face-down passenger tokens here and here. Step 8. Take 2 cards from each skill deck except the Treachery deck and, without looking at them, shuffle them together to create the Chaos deck. Place this deck in the Chaos deck space in the top left corner of the board. Step 9. Randomly select a player to be the current player and give them the current player token. Then, starting with the current player and proceeding clockwise, each player chooses 1 character to play and takes that character's sheet. The suggested characters sidebar has a list of recommended characters for you to use for your first game according to the number of players. Select these characters for a 3-player game, these for a 4-player game, these for a 5-player game, and these for a 6-player game. Now return any remaining character sheets to the game box. Step 10. Each player takes the feat card and standee that matches their chosen character, as well as a double-sided player reference sheet, and places them in their play area. Return the remaining feat cards and standees to the game box. Step 11. Each player takes the starting item listed on the back of their character sheet from the item deck and places it face up in their play area. Shuffle the remaining items to create the item deck and place it beside the game board next to its label. Step 12. Each player places the standee for their chosen character in the starting space on the board listed on the back of their character sheet. Step 13. Each player except the current player draws the 5 skill cards listed at the bottom of their chosen character's sheet. The current player does not start this game with any cards in hand. Step 14. Shuffle the Waypoint cards and give the deck and the Captain title card to the player with the character who is highest on the Captain line of succession list. You will find this on the back of the Captain title card. Step 15. Shuffle the spell cards and give the deck and the Keeper of the Tome title card to the player with the character who is highest on the Keeper line of succession list. You will find this on the back of the Keeper of the Tome title card. Step 16. Create the loyalty deck by combining the loyalty cards listed on this table according to the number of players. Your board should look like this, and you are now ready to begin play. You are free to use this tutorial setup when introducing new players as often as you like. For future games, the rules reference has instructions for setting up a standard game, which are very bland and don't include the helpful map. There are 3 key differences. Handily, they are all marked with an asterisk as well as being given a summary box. In step 13, rather than drawing a full complement of cards, each player, except as always the current player, draws their choice of any 3 cards from the usual 5 cards that appear on their character card. In step 16, when creating the loyalty deck, the cultist card may appear depending on the amount of players. This card isn't used at all in the starting game. In fact, if you don't like this card at all, then Appendix 1 in the rules reference has a variant for removing the potential cultist at 4 and 6 players, and reducing your starting resources to compensate. Step 17 is new. When playing the tutorial game, everyone gets a turn before the loyalty cards are dealt out to help familiarise themselves with the mechanics. In a standard game, you have your first loyalty card from the get-go. We marked steps 13 and 16 in red in our video to help remind you to refer to the rules reference if setting up a standard game. Thanks for joining us for Unfathomable Week. Check out our Unfathomable playlist to see if there are any videos you haven't seen. To assemble your honor dial, you take these 3 components here. You need 1 base, 1 lid, and 1 sticky in the middle thing. Simply pop out the centre of the base, pop out the centre and the top. Oh dear, don't do that, because that will break it. What a shame. Good job you get 2 in the box, eh? So, what you want to do is, maybe with a... we have to read the instructions. Oh, does it pull apart?
Yes.
You've read the instructions.
I've done many of them for Star Wars.
Oh, right, okay.
Standard fancy system. Can't work out.
Take your little widget like so, pull it apart so it's in 2 parts.
Wider section through. Can't believe you would dive.
The wider section goes at the bottom like so. Place the top on the top. Notice that it's slightly smaller. Give it a push and then press the top in there. Voila, that should be all ready to go. And don't forget, don't do it on that side, do it this side. And there you have 1 honor dial, which we've slightly crumpled at the end. So don't do that.